What's going on, NuCanoe Nation? Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Unlimited podcast. Hope you guys are doing well and things are going good. Show season is at full bore, so I hope you guys have gotten out, seen the new canoes, got to demo some at some of the shows and stuff you guys have been to. I know boats are shipping pretty much on time. Accessories are going out the door. So hope you guys are enjoying all that good stuff. But tonight we're going to change a little bit of focus from fishing to hunting. I got Dr. Shan Twit in the house tonight. We're going to talk accessing, deer and turkeys from the water, utilizing a NuCanoe. The infamous, the one, the only Everett Park has hunted with my friend here. And Everett harvested a very beautiful bird last season. So I'm sure there will be some Everett shenanigan stories going down tonight. Very cool, unique story. I remember seeing it posted on Facebook last season. So I'm interested to get Shane's take on it and hear from him. But, he's got a lot of knowledge. He's harvested a lot of big bucks and a lot of nice turkeys. So he's originally from my neck of the woods in central Wisconsin. I believe now he's in Kentucky. We'll confirm that. But, he's been around the block and he's done some really cool things that I think some of you guys will be interested in that are planning on getting out, maybe doing some turkey hunting and, utilizing the NuCanoe to do so. Also, he has a YouTube channel, Feather and Bone, I believe is the correct title of that. Go follow his YouTube channel because there's a wealth of knowledge there as well. Roy Widgeon, hello. How you doing, my friend? Hansa, welcome. But enough of me rambling. Nobody wants to hear me talk. They want to hear Sean talk. So let's get him in the house and get his intel. Sean, welcome.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
I messed up and called you Shane again, didn't I?
Oh, it happens,
I told you before
as long as you don't call me Susan, we're good.
So horrible with names, man. I apologize. But
good.
welcome to the show, man. Looking forward to just getting some of your wealth of knowledge that you have tonight on the show. And obviously, like I said in the little preface there, get some shenanigan stories on my man Everett Park, because I like having some gasoline for the fire when I see my man, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, Everett's just a down-to-earth guy. Was looking for a different canoe to purchase, and then we got connected. And so we start talking about, the different features of the boat and hunting, fishing, and then all the stories start flying. But man, I just, he's just a down to earth guy. I don't have anything bad to say about the guy, and I don't have any crazy stories yet. I mean, I've just met him last year, but we had a great time last spring. He lives down in Georgia, and he was hunting turkeys, I guess the last 3 years prior.
Yeah.
And hadn't shot a bird. And I said, get your butt up to central Kentucky. I'll take you out. And he and his brother-in-law came up. And first day we got his brother-in-law a bird. Got that hunt on camera. Awesome story. And the next afternoon, we put him on a bird. And he shot a 26-pound tank, almost 12-inch beard. Made a wonderful shot. Practically fell over backwards, and passed out in the field. Just couldn't, like, the excitement was just it was great to watch and to film from a distance. Just elated, genuine enthusiasm. I loved it. It was a great experience.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine. Like I said before, I saw the video clip or whatever it was that he had posted up, and I saw the excitement he had, and I mean, that was a conversation I think him and I had at the ICAST previous to him shooting that is that, you know, he was on a mission to harvest a bird, and to see him and, you know, just the pure raw emotion after, you know, getting the job done. It's cool to see. And like you said, Everett is a stand-up class act dude, and being able to see him succeed in his missions that he's got is a super cool thing, man. But before we get into all that, let's get a little background on you. Like I stated at the beginning of the show, I know you're from central Wisconsin. So, like, how'd you get up or get involved in, you know, hunting? And then what, you know, kind of led you to utilizing the water to get to the animals you were chasing after?
Yeah, right. So I started hunting back when I was about 12 years old, and I started off with like a lot of guys, you know, chasing cottontails, snowshoe grouse in the winter, grouse in the fall, turkeys in the spring. But I quickly graduated to deer, and I've been blessed to hunt multiple states like Iowa, Kansas, Montana, you know, Connecticut, New York, Ohio, Kentucky, where I live with my wife now. But I'm from central Wisconsin originally. That's correct, and my parents had a house on the Wisconsin River, so I had a huge stretch of you know, terrain to go and chase after, you know, ducks, bucks, and smallmouth bass. And I had a 15-foot modified boat with a bunch of frog lights up in the front, and cut my teeth on wood duck and teal hunting, fishing smallmouth, muskies, walleyes on the river, and just an outdoor paradise. I mean, about a 13-mile stretch from my house up to the next dam, and with dozens and dozens of islands to explore and backwater sloughs to, you know, go duck hunting and fishing at. It's amazing I even made it through high school and college. You know.
Yeah, definitely have a lot there to explore, and yeah, around every bend on the Wisconsin River, it seems like there's a new adventure. You know what I mean?
Incredible, absolutely incredible.
So, I mean, you started utilizing the boat to chase, you know, some of these animals, mostly deer, right? So what initially like led you to looking at a new canoe and getting in that to access these spots?
Okay, so let's start off with a story of a big my first big deer that I was after. Okay, it's very apropos to what we're talking about. So I was in the end of my undergraduate studies before I went to chiropractic school, and I was out there in the fall, early fall. I was going out solo for wood ducks, and I was out in a backwater slough, and just getting up the last couple decoys spread out in the bay before sunup, and I heard something running coming on, you know, right towards me, off to my right on this long narrow island. Yeah, there he is. That's Houdini right there. And I turn and my headlight on, and I pan over to the right just in time to see him jump out into the open water. You know, gets across, going from one island to the other. Something chased him. I don't know what it was. It could have been duck hunters from, you know, 1,000+ yards away. I don't know. But that was the biggest buck I saw my entire life at that point. I was 21. And so after I got done duck hunting, I put the decoys away and chained up the big boat to one of the trees on the island out there. Decided to do a little scouting on the islands themselves, and the deer sound that I found was incredible. And I started to think, man, you know, everybody's out here, including myself, for duck hunting and fishing, but I have to check out these islands, you know. And these islands are just thick cedar swamps and tag alders and lots of thick blowdowns. I mean, ideal bedding cover. And
Sure.
some of the islands had, you know, oaks on them with acorns the size of strawberries, you know, and just
Oh
with
boy.
no pressure. I mean, rubbed 6, 7, 8 inch diameter trees all over the place, and no boot tracks, no garbage. I'm like, you know, nobody else is out here. And that was the first year. That was the first year I saw him in 1998, and that was the only time I'd see him, despite trying to go after him. And then the next year, I saw him twice and almost had a shot with a bow. But the following year, the third year, in 2000, I was going to start grad school in November. And for the last previous 3 years, I was working drywall part-time while going to school. And I decided to quit my job October 1st and have the whole month to really go all in after this big deer. And I had to wait until I had a straight west wind because I knew where this deer was bedding and some tags, and I knew where he was feeding. But I wanted to hunt and come in from the east with the wind in my face and slip in right on the edge of where this white oak flat met the downwind side of some tag alders. And when I got the right wind, it was October 20th. And I slept in there with a canoe. And where I put in by my parents' house is about a little over a mile, about a mile and a quarter one way by canoe to get into this spot. And if you come in within, gosh, 500-600 yards of this slough where he was bedding with an outboard, he'd know that you're coming, you know. So I had to
Sure.
go in by canoe. There's no shortcut. I just had to go in by canoe. I just, when you're in college, you're working out every other day, you're in great shape. And, I wasn't really phased by it, but it was, it's a lot of effort to get back in there. And I climb in onto this island. And this is a cool story. I'm getting my Lone Wolf climber, old school 1990 model Lone Wolf tree stand. I love those stands. And I've got it attached to the base of the tree. And something catches my eye to the right. And I see this old guy, probably in his mid 70s. And he's in this about 15, 16 foot handmade wooden canoe. And he has about a 15-foot push pole. And he's pushed himself along. And he's a trapper. In the back of his boat, he has these 2 5-gallon buckets just packed with muskrat and beaver. And he looks at me, and we catch eyes, at the same time. And he just kind of smiles and nods at me as if to say, "You're in a good spot." And then and off he goes. I'm like, what the? Never seen him before or since. And at last light, I heard that sucking, slushing sound of a deer coming through the cattails, and like the Red Sea part, and the cattails are moving,
Yeah.
And here comes, Houdini comes walking out, just like, oh my God. And when he's about 20 yards away, and I came to full draw behind the trunk of my tree, and I shot him at 7 yards, and the rest is history. And he dressed out at 210, so he was just under
Jeez.
300 pounds. Yeah, my buddy Ryan, his brother Chad, helped me take him out of the islands out there. So I had to paddle halfway back just to get a cell signal on my old school flip phone. This is 22 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I said, "Dude, I got him." He's like, "What do you mean you got oh, you got him? Like him?" I said, "Yeah, I got him." And I said, "I'll need you and your brother. This deer's huge, and I can't do this by myself, especially in the canoe." Well, I mention all this because, a lot of guys, including myself up to that point, didn't think about hunting for deer on islands on a big river system. And a lot of guys look at water kind of in general when it comes to hunting as a barrier.
Sure.
And there's also the safety component, right? Like, canoes are tippy, they're not real stable, and I thought for 20 years from end of junior high on, why can't anybody make a canoe that's like roomy, stable, and
Right.
has a back that's flat, like so that I can put a small, trolling motor on it. And
Mhm.
nobody ever did for years. And but I've been using canoes, for 25 plus years. And now I have the Frontier 12, which is incredibly stable and incredibly safe and lightweight. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And I use it for accessing some of my really good spots for both turkey and deer here in Kentucky.
Sure.
And it works absolutely phenomenal. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, you unpacked a lot in that. I mean, the stealth factor, number one, like you talked about, like not having an outboard and being able to paddle in or use an electric motor to go in.
Hmm.
That way you're not alerting, whatever's around. I've seen that firsthand, like how well that plays a part into the sneak attack, so to speak.
Hmm.
And but you're right, man. I mean, I used to look at water as a barrier, but and it's funny, like I didn't get into hunting till mid 20s, basically, and I had some friends show me some things, but for the most part, I was self taught and watch a lot of YouTube videos and things like that. But um, I as I got deeper into hunting and I used to think like we talked about, water is a barrier rather than an access.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things like people, I think, assume like, why would a deer be out on that island? But then again, I remember the first time I heard about somebody hunting islands on the Mississippi River. Um, I was like, "What? Why are they going out to the islands?" And I'm
Mhm.
like, "Oh, wait a minute, deer swim." Like,
They swim
duh.
incredibly
Like,
well.
oh, right. And like, how many times have we all seen, deer swimming across a lake or a river while we're out fishing? But come
Mhm.
hunting season, we never think about that, right?
Exactly.
And it's just such a cool, unique way to get to unpressured ground. And like one of our other guys, oh my God, I'm forgetting his name right now. But he accesses, public land from the water all the time,
Mhm.
down in, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. And, just seeing the success he's had. And he's like, yeah, I could walk 8 miles in, but who's dragging a deer 8 miles out? He's like, whereas
Mhm.
I could, access from the water and I got 100-yard walk in. Plus, I didn't stink up the woods on my way in. So it's just so unique, man. And it's such an underutilized way to have a successful hunt, in my opinion.
Yeah, and a lot of times deer don't expect in general danger to come from the water. So a lot of times they'll bed with their back to cover and they'll face towards the water, right? If it's on public where there's pressure.
Hmm.
But I've seen on private property they'll have their back bed, their back facing towards the waterway, and they'll
Sure.
be facing towards an opening upwind. They just they don't they don't they don't expect danger to come from the waterway itself,
Right.
which is why I come from that direction.
Yeah. It's man, we could go on for hours about
Hmm.
that certain subject,
Hmm.
but let's kind of transition a little bit into turkeys because turkey season's coming up. I mean, when you're looking at access points and things like that, when it comes to turkeys, what are you looking for mainly?
There's an old saying that deer turkey roosted like to hear their droppings splash in the water, and so a lot of times I'll find big old white oaks with those, heavy, stout, parallel limbs that stretch out from the bank over the water, or big old sycamore trees, okay, that serve as perfect roost sites. Um, that is going to be a spot where you're going to find a lot of birds. Yeah, this is one of the birds we got last spring, and the route that we took to get into that farm, actually where that picture was taken, um, was all along a stretch of a creek where it was interesting because all the toms would roost in this one spot and the hens would roost in another spot, and we had to go. It was almost like the creek served as a division point between where the ladies would sleep and where the men would sleep, right? And
Sure.
we had to go up, and all these toms are on the left hand side of on the north side of this bank, and the hens are on the south side. And where we would access one of these food plots I put in from the year before, um, they would roost right off the plot, but they would roost on these limbs overhanging. So when they'd sleep at night, their droppings literally drop right into the creek.
Huh.
And I think a lot of birds kind of instinctively know that if I roost over water, I'm less likely to get harassed by predators, with the exception of bobcat, right? But
Sure.
even a bobcat doesn't really prefer to go up 50, 60 feet up into a white oak or sycamore tree. It is dangerous for them as well. But you get a big old 3-4 year old 4-year-old tom that is roosted, 45, 50 feet up an oak tree, and about 25, 30 feet out overlooking an open body of water. He's going to be pretty safe, you
Right.
know. So
Right.
for water access, I'm trying to find like oak flats, or short grass fields that border next to large oaks, large sycamore, large cedar, even sometimes, that are close to the edge of the creek bank. So when he pitches off in the morning, if the grass is short, like a cow pasture, he's not going to get soaking wet when he drops down into that cow pasture and get his breast feathers all wet. They can't take off from predators when they hear or see something coming as easily if they're if their breast feathers and wing feathers are soaking wet. So short grass fields, or cut bush hogged food plots, things like that, right along the edge of creeks are great spots to set up in the morning. But again, if it's on a 2,000 acre plus, let's say for example, large tract of public, yeah, you have either one or two options: either walk in and with the possibility of over sweating, overheating, and spooking birds on the way in, or coming in from the back door by way of waterway. And what better way to do that than by utilizing the NuCanoe?
Sure. And all right, so I'll be the first and foremost to admit I've never turkey hunted a day in my life. I'm interested in it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously the strongest sense that a deer has is its sense of smell.
Hmm.
In turkey, it's their eyesight, correct?
Yeah, a turkey can see up to about 300 degrees without moving his head,
Yeah, that's crazy.
which is it's hard to even comprehend. So if I'm looking straight ahead and that's 0, and to my right is 90, and my left is 90, that's only 180. Okay, he can see another 120 degrees without moving his head. He can see you moving your head way over, my right shoulder, for example, if I'm the bird, without
Mhm.
having to turn his head, because their eye sockets, like a lot of prey, are on the side of their head. Predators are on the middle, facing forward, I should say,
Sure.
right? And they see the full spectrum of color, like a human does. Now, deer have more rods than cones. They need to be able to see in low light conditions, dawn, dusk, and at night. But a turkey is a daytime active bird, and so they need to be able to see the full spectrum of color. But they live and die by their eyesight, and deer by the nose. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, and that's what I always thought, and I just wanted to make sure I was correct and not just some dumb guy who's never turkey hunted before and was totally totally out of his element. But no, so I mean, with that being said, like, you're talking about turkeys roosting up on the branches overhanging the creek. Are they typically facing towards land, or are they watching water, or it just all kind of depends?
Well, they'll spin around on the limb, a million times before they fall asleep, and then when they wake up, they'll do the same thing. If a big old gobbler's up on a limb and he's looking down, and there's a ridge to the north and there's open flat, to the south, and there's a creek, between him and the, let's say, a food plot to the south, uh, and he sees a coyote come walking through, at first light, he's not going to pitch off and land that in that field. More than likely, he's going to go to the north instead of landing in that food plot. Um, and once they get up, they'll stay awake for a while and survey the entire area. As soon as it gets light, they don't necessarily fly. They don't pitch off the roost right away. I mean, they might be up there for 30 minutes or more.
Sure.
If it's overcast and rainy and windy, they might be on the roost for 3 hours before they pitch off. But they definitely survey the ground below before they decide where they're gonna land.
Right on, right on. We got a question in the house, so I'll let you kind of answer it first. I know I got a couple ideas too, but when hunting Gage Brock, thanks for tuning in on YouTube. He's asking, when hunting out of state or an area that you have never been before, is there a mapping system you use to know if you can float it? Example, water depth or how swift or rough the water is.
Well, as far as like a mapping system, I personally use HuntStand, but Onyx is another mapping system. Um, so that's what I use is HuntStand. I just prefer HuntStand. Um, but as far as, okay, water depth or how swift or rough the water is. So you're asking,
Like, is it a
um,
fast moving river?
is there a system that you can use to look up to see the depth, as far as like from a safety perspective? I'm assuming he means.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's hard to answer, but I mean, there's different agencies in every state that monitor the depths of different bodies of water, and you can look those up online. I know that in my frontier, I mean, I can safely navigate in about 7-8 inches of water without a problem, and with the stability factor, I mean, safety is, I mean, a paramount of importance. Um, if that helps, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so to add to that, right? Like on the fishing side of things, I use USGS. Like if I get down around Tennessee, like the TVA, um, you know, those different entities will have a river gauge typically that you can check, and you can see where like normal water level is, what the cubic feet per seconds is, and things like that. So that can kind of give you a gauge on how rough that is. Obviously, if you're way above normal, that water's moving pretty quick and pretty fast, and you probably don't want to go out on it. And I know you said you use Hunt Stand. I know I use OnX, so you can like kind of see some, it's all satellite mapping, so you can kind of see like, oh, there's some riffles over here
Hmm.
sometimes, or big boulders sticking out over here. Um, I know one of our team guys is in the house, Brad Hurlboss. He said weather.gov
There it is. Yeah.
has gauge with historical data as well. Another great one.
Thanks, Brad.
Um, yeah, that's a huge one. He's a big duck hunter, so he's the one I was telling you about. We were duck hunting on the Wisconsin River. So, but
Brad the man.
um, it's that's something that you should definitely look at to be safe and make sure you're coming home at the end of the day to loved ones and things like that. And I know it's tough sometimes to maybe get there a day ahead of time to put eyes on what you're actually doing and things like that, but Hunt Stand will mark out like public land areas and stuff,
Hmm.
just like on X, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a chiropractic patient that is hardcore kayaker, and
Okay,
he follows, how fast the flow of the river is, and he knows by the hour, by the minute, how high the water is and whether or not it's too safe to go or not. Kayakers are really good source of information because their
sure.
safety depends on. I mean, you can go in places with a kayak that you can't go with a canoe necessarily. So
Right, 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 for
if they say
sure.
it's too dangerous, you definitely shouldn't be going hunting, down a river that kayakers are avoiding.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Roy is asking, do you duck hunt from your new canoe as well?
I haven't duck hunted from the NuCanoe yet here in Kentucky. I've primarily turkey and deer hunted from it, but with I've duck hunted for a long time, and I hunted some really really rough water in situations that I probably should not have been hunting in. With real, I'm not going to name the brand of the canoe, and it's not important, but
Sure,
really light, very tippy canoes. And I know that today my Frontier 12 is, I mean, there's no comparison.
sure.
Um, with that confidence comes sometimes a tendency to push the envelope, just like riding a motorcycle. You have
Yeah.
to be able to respect Mother Nature. You have to be careful. But I haven't duck hunted with my Frontier yet, but I've gone in some pretty rough water with it, and
Sure.
but mostly just for the deer and the turkey.
Nice, nice. So let's run through the story of putting Everett on a bird, because I know that was kind of unique, and you guys accessed the water to get to that bird, correct?
On day one, day one and day two, we accessed the same body of water on the same farm. But on the second half of day two, we went to a spot that I have access to, and nobody else is in there. So it's pretty nice. It's like 75-80% wheat fields. And we were tucked back in the far northwest corner of this field, and I shot a bird the week before he got there, and then we went back to that same spot, and we were calling for about maybe 40-45 minutes, and I struck up a bird. Gosh, the bird was probably 500 or 600 yards off, and then he popped out into the corner of the field, and then we decided after about half an hour of working him, he'd respond, but he stayed in that one far corner. He didn't want to budge. And so we decided to put a stalk on him, and we had about 400-yard trek to get to the corner where he was kind of hung up. And then, of course, like a lot of mature toms do, they kind of drift out into the middle of an open field, and they usually strut back and forth on a high spot where they have the visual advantage. And with an eyesight like an eagle, they're impossible to crawl out there and get within shotgun range. And so we watched him for the longest time. And when he finally crested this hill, and I realized, okay, he probably wasn't going to come back again. We took a risk, and we belly crawled out into the middle of the open field and used a little bit of dips and folds and terrain features to our advantage that we could, while his brother-in-law was watching from 500-600 yards away the whole time. And yeah, he pulled off a great shot, and he dropped him at about 40-45 yards, and it was 26 pounder, almost 12-inch beard. That right there, that bird on the screen is Noah's bird from the day before. And that was a cool story. We were done with the morning hunt, and we were working our way back to where the trucks are parked. And I'm in the lead NuCanoe. I'm in the lead Frontier, and those guys are behind me. And I'm hitting some high pitch aggressive cuts and yelps. And I strike up this bird, and he's around the corner, probably about 300 yards ahead of us. So we pulled in onto the bank immediately and went up into this field and set up. And I actually had a pop-up blind already set up in this field.
Okay.
And so Noah and I are in the blind, and Everett had to go back and get the decoy, I think. So he goes back to get the decoy while I'm getting the tripod and the camera gear all set up in the blind. And then he kind of hung out on the outside of the blind, and he wanted to give us as much room as possible. So he just kind of hung out on the outside of the blind and sat there really, really still on the ground in thick cover. And I hit the call a couple more times, and I got this bird to respond again. And I said to Noah, and I could whisper out the door of the blind to Everett so he could hear too. I said, that bird's across the creek, I think. And initially, because there was a curve, it was a bend in the river, I thought he was on our side, but it turns out the more I heard him talking as he's coming down the bank, out of sight, but I can hear him kind of gauge approximately where he is as he's gobbling, coming closer. I think he's across the creek, I think he's across the body of water. And I said that it was maybe a couple minutes later, the thing flies across and lands really close to Everett. And I'm poking through the little slit in the blind. I see this bird coming through, and I told Noah to get your safety off. He's coming. He's like, he's right here. And maybe 30 seconds later, he came out, and I said, let me get some pre-roll before you line up those beads and pull the trigger, And he's excited. You see the barrel just kind of doing this, And I said, just calm down. Just take some nice deep breaths. All right, you ready? He's like, I'm ready. I said, you got the safety off? Safety's off. All right, take him. Boom, and he drops him at about 25 yards. And it was just, his first bird. Your first bird is always your most exciting.
Yeah, right.
And the capture on video is even that much more sweeter.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah, it's I mean, that's like your first deer, right? Like, I'll never forget that, and I could only imagine what it's like to take your first turkey as well, man. It's just, and not only that, but it's, from my understanding, a lot of turkey hunting is spot and stalk. Who doesn't like that? You know what I mean? You're on the move, you're on the go, you're trying to get ahead of the bird and, capitalize on opportunities, So
it's
cool.
Exciting because it's a game that, like elk, you're communicating back and forth with, right?
Right.
And so while you're making the calls to lure the bird in, a lot of times, he's responding. So as he's moving from left to right to left, you can kind of gauge, okay, he's close, he's going away, he's coming close, he's hung up. And then you can plan around his reaction to what you're throwing at him. It's fun.
No, it's super cool, man. It's definitely something different. And just gonna let this turkey montage play kind of in the background as we're talking right now. But
yeah,
so cool. But
yeah, I just put that together a couple days ago. It's fun.
I love it, man. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, guys, I know a couple people jumped in here a little later. After we wrap up here, go follow Sean's YouTube channel, Feather and Bone. You can find it on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, give him a follow. But here's an interesting comment. Brock Howell tuning in. He says, turkeys are the hardest animal to hunt out of all the animals I've hunted in the Midwest. I've been thinking about using my unlimited this spring to get access to some hard to get spots for turkeys. So with that being said, if you could tell Mr. Young Brock one piece of advice on, something he should or shouldn't do to have a successful turkey hunting season this spring, what would it be?
Well, first of all, it's fun to hunt by way of water, so definitely use your unlimited and go that route. You can avoid the crowds, and if you're hunting, especially public, for example, um, after the first week or so, they get pretty leery. They hear the good callers, the guys that are calling too often, too loud, and they get call shy pretty quick. And you can cover a lot of ground with a boat, and you can avoid those crowds, and you can keep the area fresh by just hunting areas that other guys are not going into. Um, a lot of turkey hunting is difficult, and that's why I think in Wisconsin the success rate lingers consistently between 25 and 30% every year. It's not easy.
Sure.
They see movement better than any deer. They see, like I said, the full spectrum of color. And you get a 1 or 2 year old bird, that's one thing. But to kill a 3 or 4 or 5 year old bird is like trying to shoot a booner. Sometimes
Sure.
they get really smart really quickly. Um, and I would say, less is more. Don't try to call too often or too loud or too aggressive. Quiet and a lot of space in between calling is a good bet, especially on overpressured birds. And be patient. Woodsmanship kills more birds, I think, than calling 9 times out of 10.
Hmm.
Being set up where birds like to dust, where they like to strut, where they like to feed, and getting ahead of and observing what the birds are doing and getting ahead of where they want to go before they get there. You'll kill more birds that way than trying to be, like the world champion caller.
Sure.
Good old fashioned woodmanship is what puts down a lot of birds.
No, that's super cool, man. Super cool. I
Mhm.
think it's great advice, because I'd be one of those guys that calls entirely too much and just constantly moving instead of being worried about, you know, set up in the right spot at the right time.
Mhm.
So,
If you watch birds and observe from a distance, in open fields before the season starts, not a problem, Brock. Um, and if you can slip in, just kind of use cover and terrain to your advantage, and don't call at all before the season, especially
mhm,
on large tracts of timber. Go in and just watch from a distance to see what their habits are. Try to get as close as you can, and then just be quiet. Don't say a word. Don't call. And in a lot of places, in a lot of states, the rules vary state to state. In some states, you can't legally call to birds until the season opens. But regardless of what that is, just do more observation, and you'll notice that the turkeys, especially once the hens get with toms, they're not that talkative, because now they're together.
sure,
And if you sound like a bird that just doesn't shut up on the opposite end of a cut cornfield, for example, why does a bird have to go across town to chase the ladies when he's in a bar and the girl that he wants is right sitting down next to him at the bar, right?
sure,
That type of thing. Kind of like trying
sure,
to call, a mature buck off a doe. It's tough
right.
to do. So just kind of my best piece of advice would be go to where they want to be anyway, and try to cut them off, and quiet and less is better. Less is more.
Interesting, man. No, I like
Hmm.
that. I like that. Well, it's like anything, right? Hunting wise, the more scouting and that you do, the more prepared you're going to be, and you kind of understand the movement of that animal. You know, a lot of successful hunters, that's what they preach time after time again. Whether you're hunting
Hmm.
waterfowl, turkey, or whitetails, or elk, even. So no, it's interesting, man. It's an interesting take, and it's something that I need to do. I'm supposed to film somebody turkey hunting this fall or this spring, so I'm sure I'll get a very quick education when I do that. So it'll be cool, man. I'm excited about it. So it should be a lot of fun, man.
I love bow hunting for deer, but turkey is a very close second. I've killed a lot of birds over the years, a little over 50 now. This last spring, I think I killed
Oh
my
wow.
53rd bird, and most of those are on video.
Hmm.
And you learn a lot by filming. You
Yeah.
learn I mean, you can make a hunter a cameraman, but you can't make a cameraman a hunter. You
Sure.
know,
Sure.
that's a one-way street. So there's a trick to filming, and it's not easy, but it's rewarding. It's very rewarding.
I bet. I bet, man. Well, I know we're kind of winding down here a little bit, and I ask every guest on the show this very question, and we're going to change it up a little bit because the normal question is: you got a Frontier 12, it's rigged up tandem. You can go fishing with anybody for a day, dead or alive. Who's it going to be? But we're going to switch that up. Instead of fishing, we're going hunting. You can go hunting for a day in a Frontier 12 rigged up tandem.
Hmm.
Person could be dead or alive. Who's it going to be?
Probably Bill Winke.
Who's Bill Winke?
He's very well known in the hunting industry.
Okay, well,
Very
I'm bad.
knowledgeable guy. Oh yeah,
I should
very
know
well
this.
known. Yeah, he was the star, basically, if you will, of Midwest whitetail. If you
Okay,
heard of
yeah,
Midwest
yeah.
whitetail,
Yep.
okay. Um, Very accomplished author, many books, many magazines. Very knowledgeable hunter. Respect him quite a bit. Yeah.
Very cool,
Yep, and
man.
he's the kind of guy that you just want to hang out with, but you'd also learn quite a bit with hunting with him. Yep.
Sure. Sure, sure, sure. No, that's super cool, man. I dig that. I dig that. We got a lot of like over the last 2 years or so that we've been doing the show. It's a lot of dad, grandpa, things like that. So it's nice to get a little bit of and there's nothing wrong with that, don't get me wrong, but
Hmm.
you know, I forget what there was one recently and it was kind of off the wall, but no, I get that, man. It's a
Hmm.
hunting idol to you. I totally dig that, man.
Hmm.
So, um, before we wrap up, man, where can people follow you both on social media, YouTube channel? Um, Obviously, we want them to go check out your website, Mature Whitetail Strategies and things like that, man.
Yeah, maturewhitetailstrategies.com. What I do is I consult with people that they might own or lease property, and they have they might be new to hunting or they might be a seasoned vet, but they want to take their hunting game to the next level. I do consultations with people, walk the farm, see what kind of cards they have to deal with for natural browse, what they have for water, bedding habitat, deer sign. I just walk every inch of the property. Aerial maps are great, okay, but you have to get out and walk and put boots to the ground and see what a person has to work with. And then I put a plan together for those interested in implementing certain strategies for where to hang cameras and stands, how to access each area with the different times of the year and wind directions, where to put in food plots, and whether or not they should be hinge cut in their property, things like that. And then on my YouTube channel, it's called Feather and Bone, and I've been filming since I started hunting in my early teens, and I just love doing that. I love filming for friends. I've taken a lot of my good friends and relatives hunting over the years. I shoot their first turkey, first deer, first duck, whatever. And I just always love that extra added challenge. And then you're also capturing the moment forever. And when
Sure.
you're older and maybe you can't hunt anymore, you can look back and relive those experiences. So yeah, I just like putting stuff together. I just had so many hours and hours worth of footage. I decided to make a YouTube channel and put up there. So yeah, you can check that out on YouTube. It's called Feather and Bone, and is the ampersand symbol, which is Feather and Bone.
And I just dropped a link straight to your YouTube channel in the chat for those watching and those that are listening later on the podcast platform. I'll also put that link in the show notes as well, along with a link to Shane's website as well.
Hey, not a problem. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no sweat, man. Appreciate you jumping on, dropping some knowledge tonight. Oh, we had one last question I wanted to hit on real quick. Brock asked, and I don't know what this is, but
TSS ammo.
yes,
It has a lot of knockdown power out to crazy distances, and that's a good thing, and that's also a bad thing, right? Um, I to answer that question, I shoot very accurately out to 60 yards with the bow, but I limit my shots on actual game to about 35 because there's a lot that can go wrong with an actual animal versus a target, right? And the same thing is true with turkey hunting. TSS is really good for knockdown power, especially at long distances for both upland game, for turkeys, waterfowl. But just because something is advertised and marketed as being able to, have a nice tight pattern with a lot of knockdown power at extreme distances, doesn't mean that you should necessarily take those shots, right? Turkey hunting, I mean, I think the furthest I've ever killed the turkey was 52 yards, but I like those 20 to 40-yard shots,
Sure.
regardless of the type of ammo, just because that's what I'm most comfortable with. And it's, it's an ethical, thing too. I don't want to wound something because it's been advertised to, extend my kill range out 15, 20, 25, 30 yards even. Those are my thoughts on that. But yeah, it's a solid ammo.
Nice. Yeah, I've Lyman said great info.
Thanks, bud.
Brock said, yeah, I definitely wouldn't shoot the distance, they say. That's the thing too, right? Like we see that in archery with the popularity of crossbows, right? Just because it says you can shoot 50 yards doesn't necessarily mean you want to shoot out to 50 yards, So,
well, you have a deer that can jump the string. You can have arrow deflection. You can have, that's assuming we're not even like incorporating into your nerves and the anxiousness of that 150, 60-inch whitetail that you've never taken a shot at in your entire life. And all of a sudden he's at 57 yards, like there's just so much room for error.
sure.
You can take an Olympic archer and he can wound a deer at 15 yards, right?
Yeah.
Because it happens all the time. And some of those hunting shows, they'll show that, and a lot of them don't, but it happens. So, you increase your chances of issues the further you shoot. So
100%. Gage Brock said, appreciate you doing this.
Appreciate you watching.
Yeah, definitely. Same. Thank you again, my friend. I appreciate you taking time away from the family to sit down and chat and just share your knowledge and how you're utilizing the NuCanoe to have successful hunts. And wish you nothing but success this turkey season, man. Look forward to following along and seeing what comes across your path this season, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. And one of these days, maybe you and I will connect and I'll take you turkey on. That should be fun.
We'll have to do that. Stick around. Stick around till till we end or the show ends, and we'll chat for a minute. But thanks everybody who tuned in. We're here every Tuesday night, 7 Central, 8 Eastern, 5 o'clock out on the West Coast. We have awesome guests like our man Shane here. Every week, we're either talking fishing or hunting or a combination of the both. And how NuCanoe plays a role in that. So appreciate all you guys. We will see you next week. As always, boys and girls, well, I usually say tight lines, smooth paddling, but this week, straight shooting, smooth paddling. See you guys.